The movie opens in a little town near Paris where a married couple, Vincent and Sophie Pascal, own a butcher shop. Despite offering fresh and high-quality meat, their shop struggles to make a profit and attract customers like their competitors. The few people who do visit are also put off by Vincent's peculiar habit of awkwardly massaging the meatloaf before handing it over. One day, a group of vegan protesters storm into their shop, causing chaos by spilling paint everywhere and damaging the interior. They even ruin the meat stored in the shop before running away. Enraged, Vincent tries to stop them, but they attack him and quickly flee. However, Vincent doesn't give up and manages to grab hold of one of the protesters' masks. Later that day, Sophie visits her rich friend Stephanie at her house and narrates the entire situation. Looking at the luxurious life of her friend, Sophie is feeling disappointed because Vincent hasn't done anything special for her in a long time and hasn't given her any gifts. Stephanie suggests that Sophie should consider leaving Vincent because she deserves to be treated better. During their conversation, Stephanie mentions that her husband, Mark, is wealthy and makes a lot of money from the butcher business. They hint that Sophie and Vincent might be doing something wrong in their own business. Mark and Stephanie boast about their earnings and new properties, making Sophie and Vincent jealous. To add insult to injury, Mark belittles Vincent and reveals that they are planning to open their fourth butcher shop in the town soon after the success of the previous ones. Before leaving, Mark gives Vincent a shotgun as a gift, suggesting that it could be used to threaten the vegan protesters if they attempt to attack their shop again. On their way back home, Sophie confides in Vincent, expressing her desire of divorcing him due to the lack of romance in their relationship. Vincent, being the wise man he is, chooses to ignore her words. However, his attention quickly shifts when he spots one of the vegan extremists who had previously vandalized his shop. Driven by a desire for revenge, Vincent tries to knock the person down by reversing his car. In a tragic turn of events, he loses control and unintentionally turns him into a speed bump. Overwhelmed with panic, Vincent reaches for his phone to call the police and confess. But Sophie intervenes, concerned about the potential consequences of a lengthy prison sentence. Instead, she suggests a rather unconventional plan inspired by a serial killer named Michel Francois, who chops his victims and disposes of their remains in garbage bags throughout the city. Though Vincent finds Sophie's suggestion influenced by excessive exposure to serial killer shows, he reluctantly agrees with her idea when he should have brought up the divorce again right then and there. During the night, Vincent places the dead body in his shop and begins the gruesome task of butchering it. In the process, an ear accidentally falls to the floor and is quickly devoured by his dog. After hours of chopping up the body, it is late at night, and Vincent plans about disposing of it early the next morning. The following morning, when Vincent wakes up, he realizes that he has overslept and frantically searches for the chopped pieces of the dead protester, only to find them missing. Right then, Mrs. Cognard, a regular customer, arrives at the shop. She enthusiastically remarks on how much she enjoyed the meat Sophie sold her earlier and has returned for more. Unbeknownst to both Vincent and Mrs. Cognard, Sophie had unintentionally sold the customer the human meat, mistakenly assuming it was pork. Caught off guard, Vincent attempts to persuade Mrs. Cognard to purchase alternative cuts of meat, but she insists on getting the same meat as before. Seeing Vincent's unusual behavior, Sophie becomes intrigued and demands to sample taste the meat herself. Unable to reveal the truth in front of the customer, Vincent reluctantly offers Sophie a piece of human flesh. To his surprise, Sophie adores the taste, further intensifying Mrs. Cognard's impatience. Vincent comes up with a story saying the meat is rare and delicious because it is originally from Iran. He sells a good chunk of it to Mrs. Cognard and then, after she departs, tells Sophie the truth. Surprisingly, Sophie doesn't mind eating human flesh and suggests selling it as it is the best option to get rid of the dead body. Vincent is shocked and wants to throw the meat away, but another customer comes in and asks for the same meat Mrs. Cognard bought. The meat instantly becomes popular in the neighborhood, and a lot of customers show up asking for it. The couple makes a lot of money from selling it. Later at home, Vincent gets curious and tries the meat. Surprisingly, he too likes it, and Sophie tells him that vegans have pure blood, making their flesh taste good. She suggests hunting vegan extremists and selling their flesh for profit. Vincent keeps quiet for the most part, but is considering it. The next day, their daughter Chloe brings her vegan boyfriend, Lucas, for lunch. The couple works very hard to impress Lucas and prepares several dishes for him. They serve steak, but to their dismay, Lucas and Chloe refuse to eat. Chloe then reveals that she is vegan and hates those who consume meat. Lucas refuses every dish with an accompanying explanation of how they are crimes against humanity. Vincent and Sophie get angry that their preparations are wasted because of veganism, and later at night, Vincent decides to go along with Sophie's plan and hunt vegans. At night, they go to a vegan restaurant and choose the owner as their target. Thinking that he is chubby and will be perfect for their purpose, they follow him to his apartment, and Vincent tries to break into his room with a cleaver. But at the last moment, he looks into the owner's eyes and gets scared. He notices stress in the eyes and realizes that he cannot just kill humans before backing out. After their first failed attempt, Sophie insists they need more practice. The next day, they come up with a detailed plan. They pretend to be vegans and protest outside a supermarket, hoping to find a suitable target. Eventually, a skinny guy approaches them and praises their efforts. He convinces them to meet later in a parking lot to discuss veganism and join their group. As planned, Vincent and Sophie arrive early at the meeting spot and practice different ways to kill their target. Unfortunately, the vegan arrives with his friends, so Sophie and Vincent have to give up their plan and hide the cleaver Vincent is holding. During the discussion, the vegans mention their plan to raid a new meat shop and invite the couple to join them. Sophie hesitates at first, fearing exposure, but when they learn that the shop belongs to their friends Mark and Stephanie, they reluctantly agree. On the way, the vegans ask about their jobs, so Vincent and Sophie make up stories, pretending to be florists. When they reach the meat shop, knowing that it belongs to her beloved friend, Sophie starts having doubts. But Vincent, fueled by jealousy and Mark's condescending remarks, enters the shop and causes chaos, destroying freezers and partitions. In the next scene, the couple goes to a restaurant for dinner. They discuss secretive ways to hunt their victims, but end up in a heated argument. Vincent angrily storms off, leaving Sophie alone. Taking advantage of the situation, a waiter flirts with her. Sophie realizes they share similar interests and agrees to go for a ride with him. When they arrive outside Sophie's home, a romantic atmosphere builds, and they start kissing. However, Sophie discovers that he is a vegan and deliberately bites his tongue, making it bleed. She then invites him inside to take care of his wound, and the waiter willingly agrees. While the waiter is still in the bathroom, Sophie approaches Vincent and informs him about the situation. As expected, Vincent grows nervous and has second thoughts about killing the guy. However, Sophie starts telling him about how the waiter was a good kisser. Angry, Vincent starts sharpening his knife and suggests the meat must be de-stressed, so it's like Japanese beef. Still, afterwards, fear overcomes him once again, and he pleads with Sophie to let the man go. Sophie relents, and as Vincent goes to talk to the waiter, the man, who is nude at this point, taunts him and asks how Vincent would like to see his vegan meat on Sophie. This pushes Vincent to his breaking point, and he violently beats the waiter to death. The following day, Sophie receives a call from her friend Stephanie, who informs her about the vandalism that occurred the previous night. In a show of concern, the couple rushes to the scene, disguising their true intentions. There, they witness Mark arguing with a police officer who, coincidentally, is the same officer investigating the vandalism at Vincent's butcher shop. Later, the officer requests a private conversation with Vincent. Filled with fear initially, Vincent soon realizes that the officer has been to their shop before and only expresses interest in purchasing more of the infamous Iranian pork. Eager to capitalize on this opportunity, Vincent agrees and they resume selling human meat. The demand for their products skyrockets, with customers lining up and causing it to sell out within an hour. Encouraged by their success, they decide to make vegan hunting a regular activity. Armed with deadly weapons and employing sophisticated techniques, they embark on a daily spree of killings. As the week progresses, they increase the price of their meat and collect substantial profits. During a lunch outing with their friends, the couple brings along counterfeit Iranian pork. Stephanie and Mark, like previous customers, are instantly enamored with its taste. Unexpectedly, while chewing the meat, Mark bites down on something hard and metallic. Stephanie, with her background as a nurse, quickly recognizes it as a pacemaker used to make the human heart artificially sync to the normal beating. Shockingly, it turns out that one of Vincent's victims had a pacemaker implanted in their heart. Vincent manages to defuse the situation, but it sparks an argument between the couples, escalating into a physical fight. The husbands wrestle on the ground, and in an act of aggression, Vincent Mike Tyson's Mark's ear and begins chewing on it. After spitting out the ear, he gives Mark a menacing look and leaves with Sophie, leaving the other couple in horrified disbelief. Undeterred by the altercation and Stephanie's doubt, Sophie and Vincent continue their gruesome killing spree, raking in substantial profits. Surprisingly, with the money coming and their lives getting back on track, their failing marriage seems to improve along the way. In the next scene, they attend a vegan festival where Vincent's attention is drawn to a chubby young boy. His cannibalistic instincts take over, and he starts planning ways to butcher the boy for meat. Suddenly, a realization strikes Vincent. He has become a psychopath. Disgusted with himself, he decides to leave. Their daughter Chloe and her vegan boyfriend Lucas coincidentally run into them at the festival. Expressing surprise at their presence, Lucas, suspicious of the recent disappearance of several vegans, accuses the couple of involvement. Vincent tries to deny it, but Lucas has become angry and forces them to leave the festival. Unfortunately, one of the vegans who had accompanied the couple to Mark's meat shop overhears the argument and is shocked to discover their true identity as butchers. Outside the festival grounds, Sophie spots a woman and urges Vincent to kill her. Due to the earlier confrontation with Lucas, Vincent's bloodlust has returned. Succumbing to his desire to kill, they proceed with a gruesome act before heading home. Later that night, as Vincent is in the midst of butchering the woman, there's a knock on the door. To his shock, it's a police officer. Vincent opens the door cautiously and they engage in conversation. The officer praises the quality of their Iranian pork meat and wishes to watch him butcher it. However, Vincent changes the topic and asks the officer what he is doing late at night. The officer then reveals that he is guarding the place as 10 vegans have gone missing and the butchers have become the prime suspects. Right then, Vincent's mischievous dog appears, trying to offer a friendly handshake. Vincent somehow manages to scare the dog away with his shouts, saving himself from suspicion. Even though the officer leaves, Vincent feels that he might be suspicious. He tells Sophie about his worries, but she reassures him that they won't get caught because they've gotten rid of all the bodies and erased any evidence. Following this, Vincent cleverly gets rid of the meat from their recent victims by selling it or putting it in garbage bags around the city. They are compelled to do this because people are becoming more aware and they are conducting strict search programs for the missing individuals. Late at night, the doorbell rings and Lucas, their daughter's boyfriend, shows up. He apologizes for his behavior at the vegan festival and says he's stressed about his missing vegan friends. Sophie, always sly, comforts him while secretly suggesting to Vincent that they make Lucas their next victim. But Vincent refuses and politely walks Lucas to the door, urging him to never come back. The next day, without discussing it with Sophie, Vincent surprises his customers by saying that they are out of stock and won't be selling Iranian pork anymore. This disappoints all of their customers, and it leads to an argument between Vincent and Sophie. Frustrated, Vincent storms out of the shop with his dog. Meanwhile, the vegan group that wrecked Mark's meat shop arrives at Vincent's place to seek revenge for their betrayal. Sophie tries to send them away, but they overpower her. They tie her up and viciously beat her. When Vincent comes back from his walk and sees the vegan's van outside, he senses that something is wrong. He quickly enters the shop with a cleaver and finds the vegans about to kill his wife. Fueled by anger, Vincent jumps in and, with the help of his loyal dog, kills 2 of the attackers. One of the vegans manages to injure Vincent in the shoulder, but Sophie frees herself just in time to eliminate the last attacker. The movie ends with a couple getting arrested and being found guilty of 30 murders. During an interview, we get to know that Mark and Stephanie were the ones who reported Vincent's suspicious behavior to the police, leading to their capture. Because of the seriousness of their crimes, Sophie and Vincent are punished with a death penalty. And that's a wrap for this movie recap. Thanks for watching.